The Old Testament is full of stories of kings, some good and others not so much. Among those who failed, there are 4 who stand out for their actions that deeply displeased God. These kings are remembered not only for their mistakes, but also for the grave consequences their actions brought to them and to the people of Israel. By examining their lives, we can learn valuable lessons about the importance of obedience and disobedience. Jeroboam, the first king of the northern kingdom of Israel, is remembered for his actions that diverted the people from the ways of God. He feared that the return of the Israelites to Jerusalem to worship in the temple would weaken his kingdom. So he decided to raise 2 golden calves, saying to the people, "Here are the gods who brought you out of Egypt." This attitude not only directly violated God's command against idolatry, but also distributed a dangerous precedent of inspiration from idols in the kingdom of. In addition to introducing idolatry, Jeroboam instituted a new system of priests and festivals, further leaving the people of true inspiration to God. He built shrines in Bethel and Dan, promoting rituals that imitated those of the Temple of Jerusalem, but were completely contrary to divine instructions. Because of these actions, Jeroboam is often remembered as one of the last kings of Israel, whose decisions brought the kingdom to ruin. Second, Ahab, one of Israel's most infamous kings, was known for his enthusiasm for Baal and his marriage to Jezebel, a woman who intensified idolatry and persecuted the prophets of God. Under the influence of Jezebel, Ahab built a temple and altar for Baal in Samaria, directly defying God's commandments. This act of idolatry drove the people of Israel further away from God, plunging the kingdom into a period of grave decade. In addition to idolatry, Ahab committed atrocities, such as the murder of Naboth to take possession of his vineyard, an act that demonstrated his complete lack of respect for the laws and divine justice. The wickedness of Ahab and Jezebel was so great that God sent the prophet Elijah to announce a severe judgment on them. The story of Ahab serves as a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of abandoning God's ways in favor of idolatry and injustice. Third, Manasseh, king of Judah, is remembered as one of the most wicked monarchs of the Old Testament. During his long reign of 55 years, he practiced various abominations that included extreme idolatry and the sacrifice of his own children. Manasseh built altars to pagan gods within the Temple of Jerusalem and worshipped stars and constellations, directly challenging God's orders. His practices not only corrupted his own soul, but also led the entire nation of Judah to sin gravely. In addition to idolatry, Manasseh flooded Jerusalem with innocent blood, ordering the execution of many who opposed his merciless acts. His corrupt leadership and brutal actions provoked the wrath of God, resulting in severe trials against Judah, including an eventual conquest and exile of the people. Manasseh's story is a dark example of how disobedience and evil can bring destruction not only to the leader, but to the entire nation. Fourth, Saul, Israel's first king, began his reign with promises of greatness, but quickly turned away from God's ways due to his disobedience and pride. Despite being chosen by God and anointed by Samuel, Saul failed to follow God's instructions on several critical benefits. He offered sacrifices improperly, disobeying the waiting orders of the prophet Samuel, and spared Agag, the king of the Amalekites, along with the best of the cattle, contrary to God's command to destroy everything. Saul's disobedience culminated in God's exclusion in his reign. His inability to submit to the divine will and his growing jealousy of David led to a period of instability and conflict in Israel. Saul spent his last years persecuting David, God's chosen successor, instead of ruling justly and seeking divine guidance. Saul's trajectory serves as a powerful warning about the consequences of disobedience and lack of humility before God. The stories of kings Jeroboam, Ahab, Manasseh, and Saul illustrate the grave consequences of disobedience to God and idolatry. Each of these kings, in their search for power and control, deviated from the divine commandments and led the people to sin gravely. Their actions not only brought destruction and suffering to themselves, but also to the entire kingdom they ruled. These narratives are powerful reminders that faithfulness and obedience to God are fundamental to righteous and blessed leadership. These biblical examples teach us the importance of following God's ways and avoiding arrogance and idolatry. The history of these kings serves as a warning about the dangers of departing from divine principles, pointing out that a leader's choices can have lasting and devastating impacts. As we reflect on these lessons, we are called to seek a life of obedience and humility, recognizing that true wisdom and prosperity come from following God's will.